Okay, welcome to Workplace Procedure and Approach to Benzene Exposure for Fill and Go Fueling Stations. Fill and Go Fueling Stations is a make-believe set of gas stations in South Louisiana. There are 6 locations, and this training is to inform them and to give them advice and instruction on what to do about benzene exposure at their gas station facilities. It's not often Californians get to poke fun at another state. This quote was taken from an article, 17 Reasons Why You Still Can't Pump Your Own Gas in Most of Oregon. The state of Oregon requires you to have a gas attendant whom fills your vehicle up. There's many reasons for that, and we'll explore some. So back in the 1950s, most states actually had a law that prohibited an individual from filling their own gas. This was because they didn't want untrained individuals handling potentially explosive liquids, gasoline, diesel. In the 70s, during the OPEC oil crisis, a lot of states dropped these laws in an attempt to reduce prices of gas. New Jersey and Oregon were the only 2 states that retained their laws. It's actually still there's reasons why the law exists written into Oregon's law, and one of those reasons is exposure to toxic fumes represents a health hazard to customers dispensing Class 1 flammable liquids. The hazard is heightened when the customer is pregnant, and exposure should be limited to a few individuals as possible. So, what is benzene? You're wondering? It's present in gasoline. It's a volatile organic compound. It can be both liquid or in a gas state. It quickly evaporates in the air, almost immediately being under standard atmospheric conditions. It'll start to vaporize. It comes from oil. It's enstrained in our crude oil and our natural gas. And like I said before, it is present in all gasoline. It's one of the most commonly man-made chemicals. Benzene is often used to make other chemicals. Not so much now, but benzene was present in a lot of solvents. Used to be used to clean oily and greasy equipment. So how much benzene is actually in gasoline? According to the EPA, refiners are required to keep the maximum average benzene to 1.3% of the volume of gas. So if you have 100 barrels of gas, they require that to have a 1.3% of that to be benzene or less. Here's content of gasoline today is about 1% of volume. Now, whenever we say benzene and gasoline, you have to realize that means the liquid benzene that's enstrained inside of the gasoline. When you agitate gasoline, the liquid gasoline, or you expose it to standard atmospheric pressure, you'll have benzene vaporizing out of it. What that causes is, even though the gasoline itself has a 1% by volume benzene, the vapor space above it could be much, much higher. It could be pure benzene. Study out of California Environmental Health and Hazard Assessment was finding that benzene exposure levels at 50 meters, from a distance of 50 meters at gas stations, was actually reaching their state reference exposure levels for benzene. So there's a high potential for there to be over your exposure limit of benzene while pumping gas. These are the exposure limits. This is the OSHA, the NIOSH, and the ACGIH. You'll notice off the back the time-weighted average and the short-term exposure levels vary quite a bit depending on who you ask. So OSHA TWA is 1 part per million, while NIOSH is 0.1 part per million. I mean, that's a huge difference in exposure. and ACGIH is 0.5. So there's not, all the agencies are not in agreement exactly how much exposure levels should be. All of them are very low. Some of them extreme. The NIOSH level at 0.1 is very, very low. The immediately dangerous to life and health is at 500 parts per million. And benzene is a known carcinogen. Short-term exposures to benzene, breathing in high levels can cause drowsiness, dizziness, rapid irregular heartbeat, headaches, tremors, confusion. The second bullet here, consuming it, irritation of stomach, dizziness, sleepiness, convulsions. That's the sleepiness, the drowsiness that's often cited symptom that you'll notice if you've been exposed to benzene. And I like to key in on the consuming. So if you're pumping gas and you're not drinking the gas, but there's vapor coming out from the gas, and that vapor is high in benzene, and you decided to get a nice burrito or a sandwich from the gas station while you're there, and you're holding it in your hand as you're pumping gas. And you're not getting a vapor cloud in your face where you're breathing in the vapors, but your burrito or sandwich or bag of chips is at the height where it is within those benzene vapors, and it's actually getting embedded with benzene. And then you get on and go drive on your way, and you're eating whatever it is you had, and you've just ingested benzene without even knowing it. It also, it's very it's irritant to your skin and tissue, cause damage. It's terrible to get in your eyes, and it can also damage the tissue of your lungs. Often, skin on the skin, you'll make a red rash if you have benzene on it. The major effect of benzene from long-term exposure is the blood. It's on the blood. You may hear things such as benzene causes blood cancer. Uh, it is known to be carcinogen, and it's also has harmful effects on bone marrow and can decrease the count of red blood cells in your body, leading to anemia. It can also cause excessive bleeding. It can affect the immune system. It is known to cause women to have irregular menstrual periods and decrease the size of ovaries. That's known. That is from the CDC.gov. They're unsure if it has effects on developing fetuses or fertility of women and men. That's probably just because of lack of research. But there has been enough research to show that benzene will cause irregular menstrual periods and decrease the size of ovaries, which is pretty scary. Animal studies have shown low birth weights, delayed bone formation, and bone marrow damage when pregnant animals breathe benzene. If it happens to a rat, it probably will happen to you, although that hasn't been proven yet. And you can see here, the Department of Health and Human Services has determined that benzene causes cancer in humans. Long-term exposure to high levels of benzene in the air can cause leukemia, cancer of blood-forming organs. So we saw in the previous slide that there's some discrepancy in what the ppm level, the exposure levels are. So when this says high level of benzene, we're not 100% clear what that high level of benzene is. And also the research has been evolving. So someone who's been filling up their car their entire adult life and has been getting exposed to benzene over and over and over and over again, we have to think that possibly that could lead to some ill effects. Common routes of entry and exposure: outdoor air, just normal air, contains low levels of benzene from tobacco smoke, gas stations again, motor vehicle exhaust, and just industrial emissions. Indoor air generally contains level of benzene higher than that of outdoor air. That's because it's getting sucked in and concentrated. The benzene in indoor air comes from products that contain benzene, such as glues, paints, furniture, wax, and detergents. The air around hazardous waste sites or gas stations can contain higher levels of benzene than in other areas. Benzene leaks from underground storage tanks from hazardous waste sites containing benzene can contain well water. People work in the industries that make benzene. This is all the oil and gas industry because anytime if you have oil or gas, you have benzene. And a major source of benzene exposure is tobacco smoke. Again, on the air around hazardous waste sites or gas stations, this again is all from the CDC. So when you have a gas station, fuel station, also remember to diesel, your big 18-wheelers, diesels. So you're agitating a liquid that's going into a mostly empty tank where it has a adequate vapor space. There's potential there, and many gas stations don't have the protective measures to address it, especially your older stations. So here for Fill and Go, what we're recommending is to have air monitors at all stations. They need to be in places that will adequately sample the air that can be breathed. We don't want any air at the stations to not be tested. This would mean right at the pumps, but as we saw before too, that benzene, those vapor clouds can float off and concentrate in areas far away from the actual pump itself. And for that, we need to expand our air monitoring across all sections of the station. Each location is going to have a local environmental action plan, and what this is going to say is because you'll need a background assessment of benzene levels in the air. So if you're in a major metro area with a lot of different emissions causing higher than normal benzene levels to just be in the air, you have to set your own standards of what will do so. Let's say for one of our particular stations, we meet our 30% higher than normal rate in our air monitoring of benzene. What we might do at this time is we might shut down certain pumps, might limit the amount of people we have pumping gas at any one time. This also brings into the thought that all of our stations need to kind of address the distances between where our customers congregate and we're pumping, and the distance between pumping stations themselves, the ventilation we have coming underneath there. All these will have effect, and our air monitoring should show us where our highest levels are accumulating. This is going to give us opportunity to kind of get smart about our stations and really build or rebuild locations that are good for our employees and our customers. All of this is going to have to be included in the environmental action plan. For our older stations, if air monitoring determines that you are having higher than desirable benzene concentrations, and we will have to put in our environmental action plan what we're going to do to mitigate that, what we're going to do to change that. Also, sufficient PPE and RP, respiratory protection equipment, shall be on site to supply employees and customers. So we have to remember that there's going to be employees and customers, probably more customers than employees at every station. And in the event that there's a major spill, which can and has happened, it's not only a fire fear, which is our first fear, but we need to know that everyone can safely evacuate and isn't forced to evacuate through a vapor cloud where they may breathe in, and if they had to, they have the respiratory equipment to safely get there. And this could be this doesn't have to be a supplied air mask. There's organic vapor filters, there's half mask, we can have these on site for all of our employees and customers. Gas attendant responsibilities. So Fill and Go is going to have gas attendants, and only trained, knowledgeable employees shall fill vehicles at stations with fuel. I know many of the Fill and Go customers are not going to be prepared or accustomed to this, but I think over time they'll see that this is actually a benefit to them. Now it's going to be important because we're going to have equipment that is built and designed to minimize any vapors being released into the atmosphere. We want, I think oftentimes you go to certain gas stations, especially older gas stations, but really any gas station, and it smells like a gas station. It stinks. Some of that sweet kind of stringent smell. Well, that's chemicals. You know, that's benzene, might be CO2, might be any kind of different hydrocarbons that's vaporizing out of the gas, and that's what's in there. That's what you're smelling. We're going to minimize that. We're going to have stations that don't have that smell, and we're going to do that, one, with our equipment, and two, with our employees. Trained employees who know how to use the equipment properly. We're not going to depend on our customers to operate our facilities. Also, all of our employees on site will wear a monitoring badge. Pictured is the 3M organic vapor badge. These badges, they'll start to change color, and it helps our industrial hygienists determine how much exposure to benzene any one employee could be. And this badge needs to be placed somewhere within the breathing zone of the employee, and our industrial hygienists will collect these, and they'll distribute new ones. And from that, we'll start to evaluate how much exposure our fuel attendants will have. Now, we'll have to understand that since we will have specific fuel attendants on site, their exposure level to benzene is going to be much higher than a customer who might only fill up their tank once or twice a week. This employee is going to be constantly filling up vehicles over and over again all day. And therefore, we're going to put them at a higher risk than our customers ever were, but at the same time, we're going to implement strategies and equipment to eliminate that risk. And that's the last point here is industrial hygienists may require the use of a personal monitor. So if our badges aren't doing enough and we're seeing indications that, hey, this is some pretty high levels we're picking up, we're going to get actual air monitoring badges. These personal monitors, a lot of people are accustomed to a personal H2S monitor, but there's also monitors to read CO2, benzene, and other vapors. And we can step it up and require employees to wear that, which will give us a better picture and understanding of what the atmosphere around our pumps actually are. So all of our stations have fire suppression systems, and what we're going to do now is increase the capabilities of those systems and install vapor suppression. They're very similar to our fire suppression, but they will create a water mist. What this is for is in the event of a major spill, a vehicle hits one of our pumps or a piece of equipment fails and we're having gas or diesel flooding the surface of the station, and then a large vapor cloud get built up. We don't have a fire, we don't have an explosion happening, but we have liquid gas or diesel, uncontrollably filling up one of our stations. Our fire monitoring systems are actually going to create a mist, and that mist is going to help minimize the spread of the vapors. We also need to look at our HVAC systems and determine, in case our suppression isn't good enough, will our HVAC systems, be in a way that they can suck in the vapor. And we'll have to look at that too, and that'll probably be coming up in the future. And this is all part of the equipment design. And the goal here is kind of like I said before, is a gas station that doesn't smell ever, even if there was a leak. And that would mean that we're properly addressing any vapor clouds that be coming from our products. I also have here all stations built prior to 2007 will need to schedule an assessment. So what this is all of our older stations that may be their fire suppression wasn't built in the last 10 to 15 years, we'll have to definitely get to those stations first and fix those stations first. This is our nozzles that come with a vapor reducing boot or sleeve. We want this on all of our stations. Of course, all of our attendants will be trained in the proper use of these. It's understandable that on different vehicle types, these may be more or less difficult to use. All of our attendants will be trained on that. That's the second part of this, is a new gas pumping procedure is available and is going to have to be utilized. We have to take into account too our pump speeds. If we have flow conditioners within our nozzles, and also if we have any gas capture technology. And so gas capture technology, at all of our stations we have storage tanks. So we have to say, what kind of tank do we have? We don't often have floating roof tanks at our gas station. We have underground, basically sump tanks. So we're looking into, and we're trying to implement some technology to reduce that vapor space, or if we can't reduce it, to be able to capture that gas in that vapor space and not allow it to go through our pumping stations and through our nozzles. That actually addresses two things too. Any gas that gets flowed through the meter at the gas pump itself is being counted as gasoline the customer's buying, and it's allowing gas vapor that will get out and at our stations. But if we're making sure that it is nothing but fluid, liquid gasoline going through our meters, we're improving the product we're delivering to our customers. This is the last statement. So it's well known that there is the risk of benzene exposure from pumping gas. We will be implementing equipment to minimize the exposure of the gas. And we're going to train our employees, and we're going to require fuel attendants. This is going to be wildly different than any other kind of gas station you see in South Louisiana. So these are new gas attendants. They're going to be expected to do more things than just pump gas. Ideally, a customer will pull up to a pump. There'll be an attendant there to help direct them exactly where they want the car. This will hopefully avoid any vehicle accidents that happen at our stations, as our attendants will kind of act like a traffic monitor, making sure that no one's going to hit anyone or speeding through there. Once the customer's car is parked, they don't have to worry anything about pumping the gas. You don't have to decide who's going to pump the gas. There'll be an attendant there to pump the gas. Customer tells the attendant how much they want. They say, fill it up, give me $20 worth. Doesn't matter. After that, our customer's free to sit inside their vehicle or head to the store, get something to eat, find something, any of the other products provided. At the same time, we want all our attendants to be trained on vehicle maintenance. So they'll be there to check tire pressure, make sure you've got windshield wiper fluid. Some of our states, for all of our diesel vehicles, they're requiring DEF fluid. We'll have that available. Our attendants will be able to supply that. Also, any kind of our fuel additives and extras, our fuel attendants will be there to kind of sell, promote, and install any of these additives. We're also wanting to supply our attendants with computer check monitors. So if a customer pulls up and says, I have this issue going on with my car, this is wrong, our attendant would be able to do a quick check, and especially our stations that already have auto repair shops. The attendant can fill you up with gas, give you a quick checkup and a recommendation. They can say, hey, we can schedule you an appointment to come back and have this fixed at our auto shop or one of our other auto shops. tell you what's wrong. But basically, when you come, you're not just getting gas. You're getting a little checkup, which is great for anyone who has a vehicle every time they go to fill up gas. So I think ultimately it's going to provide outstanding service to customers and a much safer environment for both the employee and the customer, especially at our stations that may be next door to a highly populated area. And that's it. Thank you.